Princess Araline of the Salanthi Empire stood in the middle of the grand hall, surrounded by hundreds of alien nobles, and yet she felt completely alone. The hall shimmered with floating lights, polished glass floors, and pillars carved from pale crystal that glowed softly whenever someone passed by. It was a place built to impress, and normally it did. Tonight, however, the beauty only made Araline feel smaller. She kept her posture calm and dignified, the way she had been trained since childhood, but her eyes revealed the truth that her manners tried to hide. No one wanted her. Not tonight. Not in the last 5 events. Not in the last 3 cycles. She had grown used to the whispers that followed her, though she pretended she did not hear them. Some nobles murmured that she was too young. Others said she was too gentle to rule. A few said nothing at all, but simply stepped past her, as if she were transparent air. They bowed politely to her advisors, then turned away before she could even greet them. Each time it happened, a small sting caught her heart. She was a princess, trained in diplomacy, strategy, history, and combat. She carried the legacy of an empire that had existed for 1,000 cycles. But none of it mattered, because the empire was growing weaker, and everyone in the room knew it. The Salanthi Empire had once been the center of the sector, respected and feared. Its fleet had been unmatched, its scientists brilliant, its leaders steady. Now, the borders had shrunk. Trade routes had fallen apart. Old allies had drifted away. The empire still shone on the surface, like the polished floor beneath Araline's feet, but she knew the foundation had cracks. Every suitor who walked past her saw those cracks too. They were not rejecting her as a person. Most of them had never spoken to her. They were rejecting the risk of tying themselves to a throne that no longer offered power, safety, or advantage. Araline tried not to show her frustration, but she felt it building with each empty bow and each forced smile. Her council had arranged this diplomatic gathering with great hope, calling delegates from dozens of worlds. They said this was her chance to form a strong alliance, to help restore the empire's standing. They reminded her that she was not just a princess, she was the future of her people. But as she stood there, ignored again and again, she wondered how she could be anyone's future if no one even wanted to speak to her. She decided that she needed a moment away from the center of the hall. She moved toward a quiet corner, where tall plants with silver leaves swayed gently. Their soft glow cast calm shadows on the wall. She took a slow breath, letting the cool air settle her thoughts. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to feel what she had held in all evening: the disappointment, the uncertainty, and the fear that she would fail her people simply because no one would give her a chance. Her advisor, Elder Marin, hurried to her side. His long robes rustled with every step. "Princess, do not worry," he whispered softly. "This is only the first night. More delegations will arrive soon." "They arrived," Araline said quietly. "They looked straight through me." Marin hesitated, searching for a comforting answer. When he could not find one, he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder before returning to the center of the hall. Araline stayed in the corner, hidden partly by the glowing leaves, watching as more nobles entered the hall with their bright clothes and confident voices. They carried themselves with pride, knowing their worlds were strong. She wondered what it must feel like to walk into a room knowing everyone wanted your attention. Suddenly, a small wave of silence moved across the hall. Araline stepped forward just enough to see what had happened. A new delegation had entered, 4 figures, wearing simple dark uniforms with a silver emblem on their sleeves. They did not walk with the icy confidence of other species. They moved with a steady, grounded calm, like people who had nothing to prove but everything to observe. The aliens around them eyed them with curiosity, confusion, even mild amusement. They were humans. Araline had heard of them, but had never seen one in person. Humanity was young by galactic standards, only joining the wider community in recent generations. Their homeworld had little political weight, and their military strength was not impressive. Many species thought of humans as strange, too emotional, too brave, too unpredictable. But the Salanthi had always respected them for their sincerity and their willingness to learn. Still, she was surprised to see them here. Humans were rarely invited to high noble gatherings. The leader of the human group stepped forward. He was tall by human standards, though still shorter than most aliens in the hall. His uniform was neat, and his stride confident, but not arrogant. His face held a calm focus, and his eyes moved across the room with curiosity, not fear. There was something different about him compared to the other suitors tonight. He did not shrink from the stares. He did not puff out his chest to seem important. He simply walked as if he belonged, even if the rest of the hall did not think so. "Commander Isaac Hale," the announcement said. Araline watched him closely. The other suitors looked at him with raised eyebrows, whispering to each other. A human at a royal court was unheard of. A human courting a princess from an ancient empire was even more absurd. But Isaac did not seem bothered by the strange reactions. He scanned the hall once, taking in every detail, and then his eyes met Araline's. She expected him to look away as the others had done. Instead, he gave a small nod, polite and respectful, as if seeing her were the most natural thing in the world. It was such a simple gesture, yet it caught her off guard. For a moment, she forgot her disappointment and simply blinked in surprise. Marin rushed to greet the human delegation, but Isaac stepped around him and walked directly toward Araline. Several nobles froze mid-sentence, staring in disbelief. No one had approached the princess all night, not sincerely, but this human, this outsider, walked straight to her with quiet confidence. When he stopped in front of her, he bowed his head slightly. She stared at him for a heartbeat longer than she intended. He was not like the others. He did not look at her crown, the symbols on her dress, or the glowing hall around them. He looked at her, the person, not the position. And in that moment, Araline felt something she had not felt all night. Commander Isaac Hale stood calmly in front of Princess Araline, not bothered by the dozens of eyes watching him. In a hall filled with shining crowns, rare fabrics, and centuries-old traditions, he looked strangely simple. His uniform was plain. His hair was slightly out of place from the long journey. And unlike the polished smiles of the other nobles, his expression was honest and open, almost warm. Araline could not understand why this human, of all people, had approached her so boldly. Most alien suitors had avoided her completely. They bowed from a distance or pretended she was part of the decorations. But Isaac looked at her as if she mattered, not as a political symbol, not as a weak empire's final card, but as a person. For a moment, Araline forgot the hall around them. She forgot the whispers, and the pressure, and the silent fear that had followed her for months. She simply looked at the human in front of her and felt something shift in her chest, small, unfamiliar, but strangely comforting. "Commander Hale," she finally replied, her voice calm and formal. "You honor the Salanthi Empire with your presence." "I hope so," Isaac said with a small smile. "This is my first time at a royal gathering like this. I'm still trying not to step on any important traditions." Araline blinked. She was used to suitors speaking in long, rehearsed speeches, words heavy with politics and hidden meaning. Isaac's simple honesty felt refreshing. It startled her so much that she almost laughed. Almost. Before she could respond, Elder Marin hurried back to her side, his robes fluttering behind him. "Commander, welcome. We appreciate your visit. Please remember that the princess is busy with diplomatic duties tonight." "I understand," Isaac said gently, not losing his smile. "But I thought it would be rude to walk past her without greeting her properly." Marin hesitated, clearly unprepared for such a straightforward answer. He stepped back slightly, unsure whether to interrupt again or stay silent. For the first time that evening, Araline felt a small spark of amusement at her advisor's confusion. "It is quite all right," Araline said softly. "I appreciate your courtesy, Commander." Isaac nodded, then glanced around the hall. "Is it always this quiet?" Araline tilted her head. Quiet? It is one of the loudest gatherings we have held this year. I meant quiet around you, Isaac explained. His eyes scanned the space around her. Empty, untouched, avoided by every suitor in the hall. It feels strange. Like everyone is deliberately giving you too much space. Araline's chest tightened, her hands curled slightly at her sides. She had hoped he would not notice. But of course, he noticed. Humans, according to all reports, were observant in ways that other species sometimes found uncomfortable. She forced a small, controlled smile. Many of the nobles are very busy with political matters. Isaac raised an eyebrow, not believing a word of it. But he did not push. Instead, he simply held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, as if letting her know he understood even without her saying anything. A deep, echoing chime rang through the hall, signaling the start of the evening procession. Delegates began lining up along the central walkway. Advisors, officials, and nobles gathered in groups, whispering about alliances and negotiations. Araline was expected to walk at the front, a symbol of her empire's open invitation to partnership. Marin tugged gently at her sleeve. Princess, we must join the procession. She nodded, but Isaac spoke before she could step away. May I walk with you, Princess? He asked politely. The question stunned her. Other suitors had avoided being seen near her. They feared the political risk. Even the few who had considered approaching her had done so with careful distance, afraid of what other nobles might think. But Isaac didn't hesitate. His request came without calculation, without fear. Araline looked at Marin. Her advisor's expression tightened with worry. The nobles were already staring, gathering whispers like a rising storm. A human walking beside the princess at a major diplomatic event would be seen as bold, too bold. It would break traditions. But Araline had spent too long being ignored, silenced, and pushed aside. Isaac was the only one who had shown her simple respect. She felt something in her spirit lift, something she had forgotten she possessed: choice. Yes, Commander, she said clearly. A wave of shock moved through the hall. Several nobles actually gasped. A few turned sharply to their advisors, whispering frantic warnings. Others looked at Isaac with disbelief, as if a human could not possibly deserve such an honor. Isaac simply offered his arm with gentle confidence. Thank you, Princess. She placed her hand lightly on his arm, and together they walked toward the center of the hall. The walkway stretched long and polished, glowing softly beneath their steps. Floating lights descended from above, drifting like small stars. Delegates lined the sides, watching closely. Some stared with narrowed eyes. Others whispered behind their hands. A few exchanged worried glances, already calculating how this unexpected pairing might shift the balance of politics. Araline kept her face calm, though her heart beat quickly. She could feel the pressure of hundreds of eyes on her, but she also felt Isaac's steady presence beside her. He walked with calm steps, not intimidated by the crowd or the whispers. His confidence made her feel grounded, as if she were walking through a peaceful garden instead of a hall filled with judgment. You seem comfortable, she whispered as they walked. Isaac smiled softly. I learned a long time ago not to be afraid of attention. If people stare, let them. It doesn't change who I am. Araline felt a faint warmth in her chest. It must be nice, she said, to be so certain. It's not certainty, Isaac replied. It's choice. I choose not to let others decide my worth. Araline's steps faltered for half a moment. His words hit something deep inside her. Worth. Choice. Confidence. Things she had been losing piece by piece. As they reached the center platform, the hall grew even quieter. All eyes were now on the princess and the lone human beside her. Araline lifted her chin, feeling stronger than she had all night. Isaac stood a respectful step behind her, supporting her presence without overshadowing it. The ceremony began: formal greetings, symbolic gestures, promises of peace. But for Araline, something more important was happening. She felt a new seed of hope taking root inside her heart. For the first time in many cycles, she felt she was no longer standing alone. When the procession ended, Isaac leaned slightly toward her and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. "You deserve more than silence, princess. If you ever want someone to talk to, I'll be around." Araline did not trust herself to speak. She simply nodded. And somewhere deep inside, the future of the Salanthe Empire shifted quietly, but unmistakably. If you want, I can write part 3 next in the same style and length. Princess Araline walked through the palace gardens, with Isaac beside her, the distant lights of the diplomatic gathering fading behind them. The night air was cool and gentle, carrying the soft scent of blooming starflowers that opened only after sunset. Their petals glowed faintly, lighting the path with calm silver light. Araline felt her steps grow lighter with every moment she spent away from the judgmental eyes of the nobles. Since the procession ended, countless representatives had rushed toward the council to complain. They whispered that allowing a human to walk beside the princess had been inappropriate, even insulting. Araline had heard the voices but ignored them. She needed space. And Isaac, noticing the tension, had quietly offered her a walk. She accepted, without hesitation. Now, far from the noise, she could finally breathe. Isaac walked at a comfortable pace, hands clasped behind his back. He studied the glowing plants with open curiosity, like someone seeing something new and fascinating. Araline watched him for a moment, surprised by how different he was from the other suitors. They always boasted about their accomplishments or bragged about their planet's wealth. Isaac said very little unless spoken to. He listened more than he talked. And when he did speak, his words were simple but honest. "Your gardens are beautiful," Isaac said softly. "I've never seen plants like these. They respond to emotion," Araline explained. "They bloom brighter when someone feels calm or peaceful." Isaac looked around, noticing how the silver glow grew slightly stronger around them. He gave a half smile. "Then, I guess the plants are happy we're here." Araline laughed under her breath. It was a small sound, but it surprised her. She had not laughed genuinely in months. "You speak in such easy ways," she said. Most nobles would turn that sentence into a long metaphor. "I'm not good at pretending," Isaac replied. "I say what I think. It makes life simpler." "It must be nice to live simply," she said, looking ahead. "My life is full of rules, expectations, traditions. Sometimes I feel I'm losing myself inside them." Isaac glanced at her gently. "Then maybe it's time you choose what parts of yourself you want to keep." Araline stopped walking. His words always seemed to strike the heart of her problems, even though he barely knew her. She looked at him carefully. "You speak like someone who has lived through difficult choices." Isaac shrugged lightly. "Humans make mistakes often. We learn by doing, failing, trying again. We don't have ancient empires or long traditions. We don't always know the right thing, but we try, and we grow along the way." 8. We have the reader. 4-3 No. We have the reader. Araline felt a quiet admiration rise in her chest. She had always been taught that older civilizations were better, wiser, more stable. But Isaac's words made her see humanity differently. They might be young and inexperienced, but they were brave enough to change and adapt, something her own people struggled with. Before she could say anything, a distant rustling sound reached them. Not from the plants, but from a small service robot rolling quickly toward them. It stopped by Araline's feet and projected a worried blue message into the air. "Council request. Princess Araline must return immediately. Urgent discussion needed." Araline frowned. She dismissed the robot, and it rolled away. Isaac looked at her with concern. "What's wrong?" She took a slow breath. "It is about the suitors. Many of them feel offended because of you." Isaac didn't seem surprised. I guess that might happen. You do not seem worried. I'm not, he said calmly. If they're upset because I treated you with basic respect, then maybe they weren't worth impressing in the first place. Araline felt a warmth spread in her chest. You speak boldly for someone whose species holds little power in the galaxy. Isaac grinned slightly. Power isn't only about ships or territory. Sometimes, it's about standing your ground. His quiet confidence steadied her. For the first time in a long while, she felt she had someone by her side who was not afraid of the Empire's problems or the nobles' opinions. Someone who didn't treat her like a burden. They walked back toward the grand hall together. When they entered, the atmosphere had changed completely. Delegates had gathered in tight circles, speaking with urgent voices. Advisors rushed back and forth. Even the guards were on alert. Maren hurried toward Araline, his face pale with worry. Princess, we have a situation. Araline straightened her posture. What happened? A rival empire has made an unexpected move, Maren said. The Vadran Dominion announced that they will soon claim 2 Salanthi border systems. Araline felt her stomach drop. Losing border systems would be a political disaster. It would prove to every suitor that the Salanthi Empire was falling apart. Have they sent a formal message? She asked. Yes, Maren said. And they have made an additional statement. Any species who allies with us will be considered their enemy. Isaac's expression hardened. They're isolating you. Maren glanced at him nervously but did not disagree. Many suitors are reconsidering their proposals. They do not wish to offend the Vadran. Araline's heartbeat quickened. Her worst fear was happening right before her eyes. The nobles who had ignored her earlier now avoided her for a far worse reason. A few even stepped back as she passed, as if her presence carried danger. But we cannot do nothing, she said firmly. If we lose those systems, we lose our standing. The council members exchanged worried looks. No one offered a solution. Isaac stepped forward. What defenses do you have near those systems? Araline blinked. Defenses? Very few. We have been unable to reinforce them. Isaac nodded slowly. What about diplomatic channels? Any allies who can speak against the Vadran move? No one strong enough, Maren murmured. Isaac's jaw tightened. Then it's simple. You need to confront them. Not with war, not with fear, with truth. Araline looked at him. Truth? Isaac met her gaze. If the Vadran believe they can push you because your empire is weak, then show them something they don't expect: courage. Stand up to them. Speak boldly. Don't let the galaxy see fear. Araline swallowed, feeling both nervous and strangely empowered. You speak as if you have faced something like this before. I have, Isaac said softly. And I've learned something important. Bullies don't stop when you run. They stop when someone finally says, enough. His words settled deep inside her. She knew he was right. She had been bowing to fear for too long. If she continued, her empire would crumble. Maren hesitated. Princess, standing against the Vadran alone is dangerous. She is not alone, Isaac said firmly. Araline's eyes widened slightly. Many nobles turned at his voice, shocked that a human dared speak with such strength. But Isaac didn't waver. He stepped beside Araline, not ahead of her, but beside her, as an equal. You don't have powerful fleets, he said to her. You don't have endless allies. But you have something stronger. You have a leader who still cares, still tries, and still stands when the world doubts her. Araline felt her breath catch. For the first time in many cycles, someone was telling her she was strong, not for her title, but for her character. And Isaac continued, his voice steady and warm. Let me help you. Humans may be small in this galaxy, But we don't run from challenges. Araline looked at him, feeling a deep, quiet certainty settle in her heart. Something had changed. Something important. And for the first time since her empire began to crumble, she believed they might still have a future. If you want, I can write part 4 next in the same style and length. Princess Araline stood at the center of the strategy chamber, surrounded by shimmering screens that displayed star maps, troop locations, and the growing threat near the border systems. Her council members argued loudly with each other, each voice rising in fear and frustration. The room felt hot and crowded, filled with panic rather than solutions. She tried to keep her calm expression, but inside, her heart was tight with worry. The Vadran Dominion had always been aggressive, but never before had they declared their intentions so boldly. They expected the Salanthi Empire to collapse under pressure. They expected Araline to hide behind tradition instead of acting. They expected weakness. Araline knew she could not allow them to be right. Isaac stood near her, silent but alert. He watched the council with steady eyes, trying to understand every detail. He didn't interrupt their arguments. He simply waited, patient and calm, like someone who had seen chaos many times before. Finally, Araline lifted her hand for silence. It took a moment, but slowly, the voices faded. "We cannot shout our way to a solution," she said softly. "We need a clear plan." One of the advisors stepped forward. "Princess, we do not have the fleet strength to face the Vadran. We do not have the political influence. The best choice might be to surrender the border systems peacefully." Araline's expression hardened. Surrender? Without even trying to defend them? It would avoid conflict, the advisor said, lowering his gaze. The Empire cannot handle a war. Isaac took a small breath, finally stepping forward. With respect, that would only make things worse. Dozens of eyes turned to him, some startled, some annoyed, some curious. A few whispered that a human should not be speaking in a royal strategy room. But Araline met Isaac's eyes and gave a small nod, allowing him to continue. "The Vadran pushed because they believed you wouldn't fight back," Isaac said calmly. "If you surrender now, they'll see it as confirmation. They'll take more later, and others will follow their example." The room fell silent. Isaac's voice was not loud, but it carried weight. "We need to show them that you're not afraid," he continued. "That you're stronger than they think." "And how do you suggest we do that, Commander?" an advisor snapped. "You humans have no fleets to offer, no resources, no ancient allies." Isaac didn't get offended. He simply stepped closer to the star map and pointed at the 2 border systems. "You don't need overwhelming power," he said. "You need visibility, communication, strategy. If we can't stop the Vadran physically, then we make sure the whole galaxy sees what they're doing." Araline frowned slightly. "You mean we expose them?" "Yes," Isaac said. "Show everyone their aggression. Show how they threaten peace. Many species are afraid of the Vadran, but they stay silent because no one stands first. If you stand, others might join." The advisors exchanged uncertain looks. It was risky. It was bold. It was very human. "Princess," Marin said carefully, "this could provoke them further." Araline took a deep breath. "Everything we do will provoke them. Doing nothing is no longer an option." Isaac's eyes softened slightly, proud of her courage, though he said nothing. "We will send a public message," Araline said. The council stiffened, waiting for her to change her mind, but she didn't. She had made her decision. Later that night, Araline stood in the broadcast chamber, facing the glowing lens of the holo-transmitter. Huge panels of light surrounded her, shaping the image that would soon be seen across the galaxy. Isaac stood behind the crew, watching quietly, ready if she needed him. Marin stepped beside her. "Princess, are you certain? This will define how every species views you. And us." Araline felt her heart beating fast, but she kept her voice steady. I am certain. Marin bowed slightly and stepped back. The transmission light turned red, recording. Araline lifted her chin. Her voice came out clear and calm. To the peoples of the sector, she began, I speak today not as a princess seeking favor, but as a leader defending her home. Her words projected across stars. The Vadran Dominion has declared that my empire is weak, that we are unworthy of our place among the stars. They believe they can take what belongs to us without consequence. Her hands tightened at her sides. They are wrong. A quiet determination grew in her voice. We do not seek war. We do not seek domination. But we will not surrender our worlds without standing for what is right. Every empire grows and changes. Strength is not only in numbers, it is in courage, in unity, and in truth. Isaac watched her closely, feeling admiration grow within him. She looked stronger than he had ever seen her. To the Vadran Dominion, she continued, we ask you to reconsider this path. But know this, we will not bow. If you move against us, the galaxy will see your actions. She ended the message with a steady breath. We stand for peace, but we will not stand aside. The recording finished. The chamber fell silent. The technicians looked stunned. Some advisors were pale. Marin looked conflicted, but proud. Isaac stepped closer. You were incredible. Araline finally exhaled, her shoulders relaxing. Isaac gave a small, genuine smile. I think the galaxy just saw your strength. That's the first victory. She held his gaze a moment longer than expected. For a brief second, the worries of the Empire faded. In Isaac's eyes, she saw confidence, not just in their plan, but in her. The next morning, chaos filled the palace. Nobles rushed through the halls with urgent messages. Reports streamed in from across the sector. Species who had never spoken to the Salanthi before were now sending cautious words of support. Others were clearly afraid of the Vadran but admired Araline's courage. The Vadrine, however, reacted exactly as expected. A threatening message arrived within hours. It was cold, sharp, and full of pride. They claimed the princess had humiliated their empire and that they would respond soon. Tension rose throughout the palace. Advisors feared retaliation. Citizens sent messages of worry. Even some nobles blamed Araline for being too bold. But Isaac remained calm. He stayed by her side, guiding her through each new report, reminding her not to doubt herself. You did the right thing, he told her. Now we prepare. Prepare for what? She asked softly. For whatever comes next, Isaac replied. And whatever it is, you won't face it alone. His words warmed her heart more than he probably realized. For the first time, Araline felt she had a true ally, not because of politics, not because of power, but because he believed in her. And somewhere among the stars, the Vadran Dominion was planning their next move. But this time, the Salanthi Empire would be ready. If you want, I can write Part 5 next, in the same style and length. The palace was silent in the early hours of the morning, as if the entire structure held its breath. The soft glow of the ceiling crystals felt dimmer than usual, and every guard in the hallway seemed twice as alert. Princess Araline walked with a tense calm, her steps quiet on the polished floor. Isaac walked beside her, his expression focused, ready for anything. Overnight, the situation had changed drastically. The Vadran Dominion had reacted to Araline's broadcast faster than anyone predicted. They had sent ships, small ones, but aggressive in formation toward the disputed border systems. It wasn't a full invasion, but it wasn't harmless either. It was a threat, a test. And the entire Salanthi Empire was watching to see how their princess would respond. Araline entered the main command center, a large circular room filled with floating displays and communication consoles. Officers stood at attention as she passed, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. Even though the empire had weakened over the years, many still believed in her. They just needed a reason to trust again. "Report," Aureline said, as she approached the central platform. An officer bowed. "Princess, Vadran scouts have crossed into our border area. They have not attacked yet, but their movements are aggressive." "What about our people in those systems?" Aureline asked. "Uneasy," the officer admitted. "They fear the worst." Aureline took a deep breath. She looked at the map, showing the two glowing systems that the Vadran wanted to claim. They were small, rich in minerals, but not strong enough to defend themselves alone. Isaac stepped forward. "This is a pressure tactic. They want to scare you into surrendering." Aureline nodded. "Then we must respond in a way that shows we are not afraid." Her council members arrived moments later, gathering around her with worried expressions. Marin approached gently. "Princess, please consider caution. One wrong move could provoke a war." Aureline looked around the room. "If we run every time someone threatens us, then we will never recover our dignity. We stand today, not because we seek conflict, but because we seek respect." Isaac watched her with quiet pride. Every day, she seemed to grow stronger, braver, more confident in her decisions. He could see the leader she was always meant to be. "What do you propose, Princess?" an advisor asked. Aureline met Isaac's eyes briefly, then answered, "We will send a diplomatic ship, not a war vessel. A small escort only. I will go myself." The room erupted in shock. "Princess, you cannot. It is too dangerous. The Vadran will capture you." Aureline raised her hand, silencing them. "If the Vadran want to test us, then I will meet their test directly. They want to see weakness. Instead, they will see courage." Marin's eyes softened. "You truly wish to go?" Aureline nodded. "Yes. If I stay hidden in this palace, while my people suffer, then I am unworthy of my title." Isaac stepped forward. "If you go, I go." Aureline blinked, startled. "Isaac." "No arguments," he said gently. "Humans don't let their friends face danger alone." Her heart warmed at his words, though she tried to keep her expression professional. "Very well," she said softly. "We leave at once." The diplomatic vessel was small but elegant, painted with the Salanthi symbols of peace. As the ship left the palace hangar and moved into open space, Aureline sat near the main viewport, watching the stars drift past. Isaac stood beside her. "Are you nervous?" "Are you nervous?" "A little," she admitted. "But the fear is not as heavy as it used to be." "That's good," Isaac said. "Fear means you care. Courage is doing what's right even when you're afraid." Aureline looked at him with quiet gratitude. "You always know what to say." Isaac smiled softly. "Not always, but I try." Their moment of calm was soon interrupted by the pilot's voice. "Princess, Vadran ships detected ahead. We will be entering their interception range in 3 minutes." Aureline stood. "Prepare to hail them." The pilot nodded. Within moments, the Vadran flagship appeared on the screen, dark, sharp, and shaped like a predatory creature. The communication channel opened with a crackle. A tall Vadran commander appeared, his voice cold and full of pride. "Princess Aureline," he said mockingly. "You come to surrender your systems at last?" Aureline stood tall. "No. I come to remind you that these systems belong to the Salanthi Empire, and we will not give them up." The commander's eyes narrowed. "You dare challenge us?" "I dare speak the truth," Aureline replied. Her voice did not shake. "Your aggression threatens the peace of this sector. The galaxy is watching you now." The Vadran commander growled. "We are not afraid of your speeches." Isaac stepped into view. "Maybe not, but you seem afraid of any species showing courage." The commander snarled at the sight of a human. "You bring this weak creature to stand with you?" Aureline's voice sharpened. He stands with me because he believes in justice. Something you clearly do not understand. The Vadran commander slammed his fist on his console. Araline lifted her chin. I will not turn back. Isaac crossed his arms. And if you fire on us, the whole galaxy will know you attacked an unarmed diplomatic vessel. Good luck explaining that. A long silence followed. The Vadran commander's breathing grew heavy. He stared at Araline, then at Isaac. His pride demanded action, but logic restrained him. The broadcast had changed everything. The sector truly was watching. Finally, he growled. Your foolish bravery has bought you time. But this is not over. The screen cut off. Isaac looked at Araline. He backed down. For now, she said, breathing deeply. But it's enough. When the diplomatic vessel returned to the Salanthi capital, crowds gathered outside the palace. People cheered Araline's name. They lifted banners, waved glowing ribbons, and chanted in celebration. For the first time in years, the Empire felt alive again. She stepped onto the balcony, Isaac standing respectfully behind her. As thousands of citizens cheered her bravery, her council looked at her with newfound respect. Even Marin wiped away a tear. Araline spoke to her people, her voice clear. We faced fear, and we did not run. We stood together, and because of that, the galaxy saw our strength. The crowd roared. When she turned to Isaac, her eyes softened. Thank you, she said quietly. Without your guidance, I may never have stood this tall. Isaac shook his head gently. You always had the strength, Araline. I just reminded you. She stepped closer to him, smiling. Then remind me again, whenever I forget. He returned, the smile warm, steady, honest. And for the first time in a long time, the Salanthi Empire looked toward the future with hope. Not because of ancient power, not because of old alliances, but because one young princess found her courage, and one human stood beside her when no one else would.